Hello everybody and welcome to Astrology. We're just going to have a little talk about the full moon coming up in Aries. And I just wanted to say I've had some people contact me in regards to having astrology readings, asking me what I do. So I'll just put it out there of how I approach my astro readings. I always combine Chinese astrology, that is Ba-Zi, with planetary astrology. So I do use both systems. And I usually cover a planetary natal chart, a Ba-Zi 4 pillars chart, as well as looking at obviously current transits and progressions, and of course solar returns. And I just thought I'd put it out there because some people have been contacting me about that. And also, feel free to join my Substack over on Substack. I'll have all the links below for that. And like and subscribe if you do like this content. And we'll cover this full moon, which is coming up, all guns blazing. And some people have probably already felt the effects of it now, because usually you feel it a few days beforehand. Sometimes 3 to 5 days before. So we've got a full moon in Aries, nice and fiery, the cardinal fire. So most people know, and if you don't know, the full moons are usually about releasing and completing something that started usually 6 months ago in the new moon in Aries, although we did have a solar eclipse in the past, so I think we'll be in Aries, and that will be funneling through, I guess, this lunation cycle at the moment. So as we approach this full moon, the energies obviously become more intense, and they can interrupt, obviously, sleeping patterns. And Aries moons is fiery moons, so there can be, I think, a lot of impulsive emotions and things like this that can come up. But I like to say that, medical astrology, right, and this is generally, obviously, there's a number of different ways to do medical astrology, and it's not as straightforward as just covering the basics of what the sign does. But for the purpose of this video, I'll just quickly go through the medical astrology. Of course, the sign Aries rules, and what it rules is the adrenals, the head and the skull, and it has a connection to the eye function as well. But so the moon obviously draws a lot of energy up into the head, and that's where we get the term lunatic, and especially in the sign of Aries, right? Because Aries does rule the head and the head area, so things can be more pronounced at these times, and particularly those people suffer migraine headaches and things like this, right? There's going to be a lot of energy coming up to the head around this time. So I just thought I'd pop this in before we get started. And then also, obviously, if people want remedies in regards to this, and particularly if people who feel a lot of angst and panic attacks, insomnia, the cell salt potassium phosphate is absolutely critical to take at this time, and because that is ruled by the sign in Aries. So for people who are suffering from those emotional type issues as well as the psych stuff, that cell salt is absolutely wondrous. And I have a series on the YouTube channel, as well as my Substack, actually. The Substack on my cell salts is actually more paid, but I do have a free version on my channel here. So if you guys are suffering from any of those issues, then feel free to check out my talk on Aries, potassium phosphate. It's an amazing salt. So if you are suffering from those issues at this point in time, as we're leading up, the energy is building and building up to this. So it is a good time to take some of those. Now, obviously, Aries is ruled by the planet Mars, so the position of the planet Mars is important to note, as it also rules the sign of Scorpio. And so Aries and Scorpio, Mars rules these signs. So you want to pay attention to where these are in your chart around this lunar cycle, this full moon coming up. That's important. And the cardinal nature of Aries relates to, obviously, the pioneer, the martial arts, the warrior, the spirit of independence, taking initiative and action. It's a very action orientated element, cardinal fire, and Aries, right? So the position of Mars in your birth natal charts will show where obviously we choose battles in life, right? Wherever Mars is, Aries, and particularly Scorpio in the chart, it's usually the areas where we're going to have a few battles. And we're going to have to learn to take the challenge and assert ourselves, take leadership, step into our masculine energy, become very in tune with that. One of the best representations of that would be in the tarot with the major arcana card, the Emperor. So it's good for people who aren't so in tune with their own masculinity, then meditate on this card and what that card represents. Tune into the key words and this kind of thing, because the Martian principle is actually really lacking in society today. The healthy aspect of that. So it's a really good thing to mull over at this time, because there's going to be a lot of Aries energy out there where people can be pretty volatile. It's the risk-taking sign. So, just be careful on the roads and things like this as this energy builds up. People will have a short fuse, short-tempered, become impatient. This is all the shadow side of Aries. But on the positive, it is extremely pioneering, entrepreneurial, and also it will really kicks the adrenals. When the adrenal function's healthy, like I was saying before, Aries rules this, then we're extremely, extremely motivated to really get things done. The adrenals are connected to the kidney yang in Chinese medicine, so they're going to be the driving force. Kidneys, the virtue of the kidney as an organ in Chinese medicine represents the will. So it's no surprise, right, that Aries is connected to the adrenals, and that cardinal fire is actually pure will, in my opinion. So interesting things to consider, because there's always the medical side, the Chinese medical side, and then it's also important to become in tune with your body, right? There's a lot of people walking around town these days who don't even realize they're in a vessel. They're just a walking left brain under full-fledged psychic hypnosis and mind control. But anyway, I digress. So the Aries of energies has been more prominent lately, actually, because in the collective, right, Neptune and Saturn have been in this sign, and I've got a few articles about this on my Substack channel if you guys want to read on that. Saturn ingressing into Aries. But Saturn's actually retrograded back into Pisces at the 27th degrees. At the moment, it's at the 27th degree, but later on in the year, it's going to ingress back by the end of November back into Aries. So I think this is an interesting time. Neptune going into Aries, as it is placed, is going to stimulate the unconscious of people to become more fiercely independent and live their life on their own terms. That's the healthy side of it. The other side of it, Neptune dissolves boundaries. It could be the full-fledged erosion of masculinity. But there's always flip sides to these things, and there's a lot of other things to consider to look at these things. But so the good thing is when the moon comes, the main thing is about all this kind of stuff is that when it comes to these things is to keep yourself balanced, particularly around full moon. So treatments are really important. Body work is really important. Acupuncture, things like this, rolfing, massage. And because, of course, if you've got heat or if you suffer yang deficiencies and things like this, which means you lack fire in the body, then the infrared saunas and all this kind of thing can be really, really important as well. But full moon in Aries, like I said before, can be impulsive, explosive. And so we need to keep these energies in check at this time. And there's also a hard angle with this moon. It's in a semi-square aspect to Uranus. So sometimes the semi-squares that I've noticed have a greater effect on our unconscious. It's not so much of a common aspect that's really talked about as opposed to the square, which is quite a hard aspect. But, you know, all the technicalities aside, I think when Uranus is in a semi-square aspect to the moon, then we can have some kind of unconscious surprises to our own inner life. So it's important to pay attention and just to reflect and see what comes up at this time. So, and another thing I wanted to say is this moon falls into the second decan of Aries. And I always look at these decans because I think they're really important and they're deeply connected to the tarot. So this decan is connected to the Three of Wands. And this card is connected to the frequency of the sun, ambition, and its potential is determination, which generally Aries as a sign is extremely determined and willful. So, but this card indicates growing, progress forward, movement, meeting deadlines, and also this Arian energy always stimulates us to leave our comfort zone. So the wands in the tarot represent our libido and the amount of bioenergy that's available to us. And generally, right, Aries moon's types from natal positions actually love to be number one. They're usually highly competitive, but they're really highly competitive with themselves, I would say. So I think with Aries moons in general, it's a good time to take risks. Don't fear competitions. Step into the masculine and really try and take charge in the areas of where this moon actually falls into your chart. And I'm going to go through the 12 rising signs right now, just briefly, so you guys can get a little bit of a flavor for it. So for Aries rising, you're going to have the full moon fall into the first house. And really the first house is about your physical environment, the physical body. And you're going to feel this moon, this lunation moon in right in the physical body, I would say. And it also is about your identity and how you present yourself to the world. So the first house rules your vital force, your chi and prana. And with this moon, I'm going to talk about where the position of Mars is falling in the chart as well, because that's important to know where that is. And Mars is in Scorpio at the moment, so Mars rules Scorpio. So at this time, it's going to be in that house of wherever Mars is, right? So Aries in the first house, obviously connected to the physical body, connected to how you identify yourself, present yourself to the world. And like I said, the first house is about how your vital force is feeling. So Aries being ruled by Mars is currently in Scorpio and being played out through the 8th house. And the 8th house is the placement of intimacy, shared resources, taxes, death, and the occult. So the 8th house is another house connected to the psyche. So I would say around this moon, this can indicate another purge on the psychological level that also may change your physical appearance in some way with having the moon in the first house. So, and also usually for the Aries rising, you're most likely to be feeling your emotions on your sleeve at this point. So it's an easy time for you to get triggered emotionally around people and your immediate environment. So this full moon in this placement can make one, like I said, really extremely sensitive to your immediate environment and definitely can easily get triggered emotionally from others. So just be mindful, stay grounded, and really purge out some of those more heavy aspects that can be coming out through that psyche as Mars is playing out through the 8th house. For Taurus and Taurus rising, the Aries rules your 12th house, so the full moon's going to be in that house, and that's alone time, nature, retreats, spirits, dreams, and the house of sleep. So for those of you Taurus rising, having the full moon coming in the 12th house, you can feel extremely tired at this time. And me personally, I'm a Taurus rising, and I've been noticing this. I've been having power naps in between patients in clinic, actually. Thinking, God, why am I so wiped out? But I have really been experiencing this. And the 12th house can always reveal some hidden emotions that may resurface as well. It's a very good time for healing the psyche. So if you're doing your psychological homework, inner homework, is really can be calling at this time to do a little bit of that. The Martian energy is playing out through the 7th house, and it rules the 7th house, being that Scorpio on the cusp of that house. So along with Aries in the 12th, conversations may need to be, the 7th house rules colleagues, spouses, and things can come up that can be issues that can come up that can be quite uncomfortable at this time, that actually need to be addressed. It's a good time for spiritual release at this point, and you can get closure around deeper issues that have been playing out for you around the last 6 months in relations to relationships. When things go into the 12th house, it's about bringing things out into the closet, especially in the connection with the 7th, to do with colleagues and partners. And it's really important not to hide away from confronting deeper issues at this time, because that can actually happen when the moon's in the 12th house. We want to remain hidden and not want to express ourselves or show up. And it's important to really come out at this point, and particularly as Mars is playing out through that 7th house. And so otherwise things can get quite fiery and toxic if we don't, especially with Mars in Scorpio going through that 7th house, but in connection with the spouses and colleagues, work colleagues, things like this. But it is generally a good time to focus on inner peace and meditation, and really explore that inner world that the 12th house really represents. So for Gemini and Gemini rising, the 11th house, house of friends, hopes, wishes, dreams, goals, the wish fulfillments, and social life. So social life will obviously be lightened up at this time with lots of action focused on networking and opportunities. So Mars will be playing out through your 6th house, making your active day-to-day routines extremely busy. So be careful not to burn out with the work schedule, as this can ramp up at this stage. And you need to watch your health at this time too. Mars going through this house. 6th house is generally around the house of health. And so you can have a tendency to, especially with Mars in the 6th, people can tend to be that busy they eat on the run, which can disrupt the digestive tract, digestive system. Watch for arguments and power plays in work situations. And there can also be releases with daily work. So things can come, and community aspirations in the 11th house, but things that need to be released, that maybe you've realized that, Jesus, I'm flogging myself at work, I need to pay more attention to this and get more work-life balance. And particularly out in the community, in that connection with the 11th house, where that lunation cycle is. But it could be a really big time socially for the Gemini rising at this point. Cancer rising, the full moon will be in the 10th house. So this is going to be about your career and reputation. There will be opportunities for public achievement and career peaks at this time, right? Something could really come out into fruition. And there can be an opportunity for public achievement as well. And the Mars is, your Martian energy is playing out through that 5th house. And so the 5th house is about taking risks, gambling, creative projects. It's a house of really hobbies, getting the creative juices flowing. So there could be an opportunity to present a creative project at this time, which really you may want to present out into the world, right? Being that 5th house connecting to the 10th. So it can be a really creative time at this point. And you could potentially even step into a leadership role, because the moons, the Aries moons, are an opportunity to create a leadership, particularly when it falls into the 10th house. Or there could be certain things that come up where you are forced to be stand up and be assertive in an area of career, and really assert your needs, make sure you're getting your fulfillment, or you may have to stand up and play more of a masculine role in that sense. And obviously the 5th house is all about children and romantic relationships as well. So this could be, there could be issues around that coming up in terms of making a romantic relationship come public, or you may need to address certain issues at this time to do with your children, and it could be the work balance in connection with children as well. For Leo, Leo is falling into the 9th house, so there can be a focus on beliefs at this time, philosophies, education, higher education, as in, universities, colleges, things like this. This house also rules foreign lands, legal matters, mentors, and also travel. Mars is ruling this 4th house at the moment, is transiting through there. You've got the sign of Scorpio on the 4th, so people may want to really get outside with Martian energy there, or move from home, or just get out of the home as much as they can. And sometimes with Mars starting to go through the 4th house, there could be family dynamics could get heated up. There could be battles on the home front. Remember, Mars is where we battle, so there could be a lot of tension and fiery nature on the home front at this point. It could be a good time when you get stimulated, or just want to, like I said, just want to get out of the house, stimulated to travel. A lot of people might just say, I'm just going to go buy a ticket and go overseas, or even make plans to do so. And for some people, right, you could be completing a degree of some kind, and there could be a completion of higher learning at this time, reflective of that 9th house. So for the Leos, it probably is a good time to get out there and do a little bit of travel and explore the higher philosophies as well, which you can really be stimulated to do that when the moon gets into the fire sign of Aries in the 9th house. And so we have the Virgo rising with the full moon falling into the 8th house. This is going to be a deep one for the Virgo types, because the deep energies emerge when the moon is in this house, right? So there can be a rebirth of some kind, or some kind of psychological shedding, because the 8th house is one of the houses of psychology, alongside with the 12th and the 4th. So issues of intimacy, resources, death all come into play. So this moon is asking you to embrace change, pretty much. And Mars transiting your 3rd house at this point, which kind of rules communication, the mind, siblings, neighbors, short distance travels, also rules cars, things like this. So communication can get fired up at this time. The tongue can get a little bit razor sharp, but deep emotions are to be communicated at this time, which may not be so comfortable. The moon actually going through this house as well can arouse the interest in the occult, right? Because you got to remember, the 8th house is about hidden knowledge, and the 9th house is about open knowledge. So here, the difference between the two. But the 8th house is definitely ruled by the occult, and Mars in the 3rd can stimulate interest in divination at this time as well. I'm picking out things that are a little bit different to look at, but definitely those houses. So I think it's a really good time for the psychological shedding, and Mars being in the 3rd house, really communicate maybe the darker stuff that could be arousing within the psyche at this point in time. But I'd also say too, with Mars going through the 3rd house as well, and because it rules the kind of lower mind, it's naturally a house of Gemini, that it's careful with the self-dialogue and self-talk in your life. Just really be careful not to berate yourself at this time. So be gentle with yourself. So with Libra rising, the full moon will be in the 7th house. This is a house for dealing with other people, personal and professional. And these people can be, the professional could be astrologers, counselors, and then personal, obviously, spouses, and also colleagues as well. So things can get spiced up in these areas. So strong partnerships will come together and solidify at this time if things are going really well. If not, then the Martian energy is going to cause a little bit of friction, right? And a bit of fight will be going on, a bit of tension. So Mars rules the 2nd house. So this kind of connections going on in the area of self-esteem, finances, resources, and spending habits, right? So money will be on your mind at this point in time, I would say, for the Libra rising. And you got to remember too, when Mars tends to go through the 2nd house, you can tend to have a tendency to impulsively spend. You can burn money, or you can burn through money, quickly. And so tensions may arise with this connection between money and spouses. You may have to battle your financial situation at the moment. And or there may be an issue with your spouse that you need to become more assertive around when it comes to the dynamic of money. So this time will be a time to fight for asserting your needs and how you show up in relationships to others as well, for the Libra rising. For Scorpio rising, the full moon will be in the 6th house. So the moon connected to work, service, health, routines, daily habits, house of slavery in kind of medieval astrology, this kind of thing. So if you've been working on health and diet, this time can be where you actually may see the changes pay off for you, actually, because the 6th house is all about this. So if you started some diet routine 6 months ago and then all of a sudden you've been really disciplined and you're starting to see that this could be the time where you actually start to see things pay off for you on this level. Another thing also, Mars is going to kick in, right, and make your day-to-day routines a lot busier. But also, another thing I would say, you've also got Neptune in this house, speaking of health. So it's a good time to obviously avoid alcohol and drugs, right? Because it can make you super sensitive to the effects of these things. And then also, Neptune in this house can make you more sensitive to atmospheric conditions. So you can be sensitive to energies in the environment, which can make you vulnerable to illness, right? Neptune, as we know, dissolves boundaries, and you can take on negative energies, and particularly energies that are really swimming around in the ether, right? So the etheric and astral realms. So, you know, if you're having problems with this, then because your Mars energy is in your 1st house, so Mars is transiting your 1st house for the Scorpio rising, obviously. So I would say to ward off this kind of stuff, really move your body to strengthen the chi and prana. Really important. And Mars in Scorpio actually rules the sinuses, so there can be potential sinus issues at this point in time. And I've noticed my son has had this. He's a Scorpio rising. And this is where saunas, infrared saunas, you use the energy of Mars if it's favorable for you. There's other things to look at in charts, but you may benefit from the infrared saunas, which can help or clear those sinuses. But I would say just stay patient, particularly at this time, and don't rush things, because, you know, the 6th house also can indicate accidents as well. So just careful at this time for the Scorpio rising. For the Sag rising, we've got the full moon in the 5th house, house of children, creative self-expression, pregnancy, romance, and is also connected to the inner child. Also gambling, taking risks, the risk-taking house. And so the moon's going to bring attention to these areas. It's actually probably more of a fun time for the Sag, actually. I would just get out there and have a good time. And you're probably feeling that too. Your Martian energy is playing out in the 12th, so it can indicate maybe possibly a retreat with a romantic partner, because the 5th house rules romance, right? And I would say, just on that case, if that's in, it's a time where maybe, because Martian energy is in the 12th house, it could pull up a lot of hidden fears in the subconscious in regards to romance or previous traumas people have had in relationships. So, but I think ideally it is a good time to really put yourself out there for the Sag and really try and enjoy this, because the 5th house is pretty good fun. And it rules theaters and things like this. So go out, get out into that world where be around a lot of creativity. So, and I thought so too, because Cancer rules the 8th house as well, which the moon's obviously connected to as well on that level. So I would say on the relationship side, it's also about having fun and releasing those hidden fears around connecting with people. But I'd also say then you're going to also need something in a romantic relationship that is beyond the surface level and want to go to deeper levels. So you need to drop the mask with this one, and allow yourself to feel vulnerable and go deeper with intimacies in the romantic life. That's for sure. And if you've been working on a creative project or an opportunity, could come your way. The 5th house is also about that. So you could be maybe potentially been working on a creative project. Maybe it may even be connected to being behind the scenes because of Mars in the 12th, but it could come out to fruition at this point in time. For the Capricorn rising, the full moon will be in the 4th house. So the moon here is really like coming home. The moon likes to be in the 4th house because traditionally it's ruled by Cancer. So you can be dealing with property, ancestral roots, parents, moving or selling home. So there can be a major home or family event at this time, like housewarming parties, because Mars is connected to the 11th house, so it can indicate social gatherings with family on the home front, parties, or housewarming parties, things like this. Or you may be really organizing something to do with family gatherings, as this full moon's in the 4th house. Some people you may have started some kind of renovation project or something like this 6 months ago. Maybe it's coming to a completion now at this point. So there's a lot of activity around the home. But it could be a time for releasing, in a way, ancestral issues or patterns or family dynamics that have been not so positive from the past, and now's an actual time to release and get some healing and clarification around those issues. So for the Aquarius rising, you've got the full moon in the 3rd house, which can bring up the themes, obviously, of neighbors, siblings, communications, podcasting, blogging. Mars is playing out through the 10th, the house of vocation and career. So your drive and ambition will be the next level. At the moment at work, making you sharp and assertive, actually, to try and reach your goals career-wise. I don't know if Aquarius risings are feeling that, but now I would say you would be. The full moon in Aries in this case, in the 3rd house particularly, will really want to fire up your communicative abilities, your writing, your projects, your blogs or books. These kind of things may get released at this time if you've been doing podcasts or websites or actually writing a physical book or electronic book. Now's the time, would probably be a good time to get it released. So the 3rd house is also about traditionally connected to the house of Gemini, so it's different. It is the lower mind, and it can break through, and you may break through and have a really great creative idea at this time. And this idea could break through actually at this point with Mars in the 10th house in the house of career. So if you've come up with a really kind of cool idea and want to get it out there, particularly to the world, I would say now is a really good time to do that. And we have the Pisces rising, and this Aryan full moon's falling into the second house, which is to do with money, payment, resources, self-value, confidence, and security. So the full moon here will bring attention to what you possess and what you own. It could be a time when you make a purchase of some kind, can be a major one. As Mars is transiting, obviously, your 9th house at the moment, it could be a purchase of a ticket overseas or purchasing a higher course for higher education. Actually, I just had one of my patients who's had this full moon in this area, and she just texted me today, actually, and she just said, yeah, she's just enrolled in a degree studying psychology. So this kind of thing, right, can happen. Just made a purchase because the 9th house is all about higher learning, higher education. Other people may have to invest in lawyers, teachers, or specialists of some kind. On the flip side, you could be earning money from teaching and traveling. With the full moon in the second and Saturn and Neptune being placed here, you may have had to work through the scarcity mindset when it comes to the purse strings. So you may have had to really, particularly with Saturn in the second, you have to be really focused on budgeting and paying really close attention to every cent and dollar you earn and how you use it. Also, there could have been, for some people with Neptune there, possibly issues with deception and being deceived and being shafted by, certain financial sharks who are out to kind of, pull the wool over your eyes and scam you. This kind of thing happens with Neptune in that house. Or sometimes you can just sign contracts and things like this to do with financial agreements or something like this that you're not really clear on how things play out, and it can really and then later on you can think, God, how the hell did I fall for that? So just be careful with Neptune in the second. So yeah, that's what I'd really like to summarize with. This is just a basic rundown of the 12 signs in relation to this full moon. And just in summary, yeah, just really keep on check with the health. And obviously I'm a health practitioner, so I always put a lot of emphasis on this. I think it's really important. And yeah, so anyone got questions, you can comment below on this or can contact me. My details will all be there. And we'll chat soon, and I look forward to doing the next one.